93 got that beat.
What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Watch God Work. In every episode, we get the distinct pleasure and honor to speak to a brother or sister that's doing exceptional work in every field of human endeavor. And they share their God stories, the ways in which God has been at work in their life, and the ways in which God has been at work through their work. And today, y'all, man, this is special for me. This is my big brother. Yeah, I mean, in so many ways, I'm so thankful to welcome our brother, your brother, Mr. Jullien Gordon. What's going on, King?
What's going on, brother? I'm so happy to be here, man.
Man, I'm happy. I'm happy that you are present, man. And we're together apart, but we're together in this, and we're together and connected in so many different ways. I like to be full
Indeed.
disclosure, not put the hashtag ad on the social media. But I was introduced to Jullien years ago. We happen to kind of have the same overlapping relationships, same overlapping kind of journey, from business school and the like, but have been kindred spirit. Anytime I have spoken to him, his vision for people, it's never been about him. His vision to kind of motivate people to kind of return to themselves. His vision to empower people to be free. Free, just not in the physical sense, free from the mental sense, the spiritual sense. And so I would call he's been one of the most holistic brothers I've come to know when it comes to the totality of life, the emptiness as he speaks to in his words of the 99% of the atom and the light, but just the reality that God has called us into more, and that people are called to be free, and that
Yes.
you are pure gold, your mind, your spirit, and that ultimately, until you find that, you'll never be free. And so I think that this is powerful because I think the world has come to know him. Multi-family movement, man. When I see him walking through New Orleans with a group of people. It's just like, for me, it's like the Ali, with the Salif Keita in the background.
Yes, yes, yes,
You
yes.
know what I'm saying? With Will Smith replaying it. I mean, I see the things that we have been praying about, the not waiting for anyone to save you outside of the one who has saved us all, doing the work and empowering people who didn't believe that there were more available to them in this life on this side of glory. I'm excited.
Yes.
So I share that to say you've come to know him in many ways as an exceptional coach, as someone who has empowered students, companies, brands to how to better recruit talent, for people to unlock the talent, for people to have a clear view of their vision, their understanding, for people to build frameworks and practices as mastermind groups, the million that he's looking to do around the world. My brother has countless seen, but there's a lot that you see integrated in his faith. And so, again, my brother, I had to lead that off, but I know I've only touched the surface. But who is Mr. Jullien Gordon?
Jullien Gordon. Jullien Gordon, above all else, is a child of God, period. That is my highest identity, more than gender, more than religion, more than nationality. That is my highest identity. And when I move from that place, I feel limitless. I have heavenly and I have earthly work. Scripture says on earth as it is in heaven, right? And for me, heaven is our mental experience of life and earth is our material experience of life. And so me, my heavenly work is financial spirituality. And that's me transforming the way people relate to money and helping them see it as stored energy and as an inert spiritual substance that we can use to do good and do God on this planet. My material or my earthly work is actually the multifamily movement, and that is teaching people how to achieve rent and mortgage freedom by acquiring their multifamily home that gives them cash flow where they are no longer paying to live, but they are now being paid to live. That was critical to my journey to get housing taken care of. So I have not paid a housing expense for the last 8 years of my life because of the triplex that I bought in Brooklyn in May of 2013. And that didn't get me to full freedom, but it freed me up in such a way, especially with rents in the Northeast being what they are, it freed me up in such a way to stay in alignment with my purpose as opposed to being worried about money every single day. And so the parable or the story about Jesus going in the temples and overturning the tables of the money changers. That was an allegory in my eyes around the temple being right here, right? And it was an allegory of our temple not meant to be turning our Father's house, which is supposed to be a house of prayer, into focused on money constantly. And that's what humanity has ended up doing. We've given this green piece of paper so much power that it is dictating our decisions. We've made money our God, right? And you can't serve God and money at the same time. You will choose one and forget the other. And so we are in a moment in time where we need to change our relationship to money and understand that we actually have power as children of God and as creators over this resource. But many people have made this resource their God, and hence on the back of the dollar bill it says, "In God we trust," and we have to reclaim our relationship to money. Jesus in particular, for me, he had the highest degree of wealth consciousness ever, so much so that he didn't even need money because he could manifest on demand. If I manifest on demand, I don't need to carry resources with me. I don't need to store anything because I know how to manifest on demand. But wealth consciousness is when you know what your true source is. I and the Father are one, right? And so the best way to anchor people in wealth consciousness and help them understand it is for have everybody just take 10 seconds and inhale for 5 seconds, pause, and then release for 4 seconds. And if everybody would do that with me, I think I'll be able to show you something. Inhale, or in heaven, I like to say. Release. Here we all just took a deep breath, and regardless of where you are in the world right now listening to this, when you woke up this morning, nobody here worried about whether there's going to be enough oxygen for them. You could have seen somebody training for a marathon outside this morning, and you didn't have any worry or concern that there wasn't going to be enough oxygen for you, right? You trusted that your mother, father, God was going to supply not only you, but everyone with the oxygen that they needed to live and do God's will today. And when we can relate to money in the same way that we can relate to air, or that we do relate to air and oxygen, then that is what wealth consciousness is, where we actually, what's crazy about it, wealth consciousness is when you get to the point where you don't even think about money, because money is actually not part of your worry or your decision-making set. You seek to be in alignment, and you know that when you seek ye first the kingdom of God, all these things that you need shall be added unto you.
Brother, this is, I love you setting the stage like this, because my natural question for anyone who sits under the fire, I call it, the teaching is fire, man. It wakes up, it warms you, but sometimes you're gonna need a little burning to wake you up from the slumber that you've been in. When did you first not feel free, man? Because such a consistent theme is free.
Yeah.
When did you first not feel free?
So that's a great question. I love that question. So there's only been one moment there's one signature moment that actually woke me up and actually put me under the fire. It was my In the Crucible experience, and that was at the age of 18. I just finished my first year at UCLA. I was already a junior at that time, so I was ahead of schedule because of my AP classes from high school and the extra credits I was taking. So I was doing everything that I was quote unquote supposed to be doing. And that summer, I was promoting parties, and I'd saved up enough money from tutoring to buy my first car. And so I bought a Mercedes Benz, and it was a 1990 190E in black with the tan interior, like you see in the movie Coming to America.
Yeah. We know that essence. We know that energy.
yeah, y'all know what it is. And when I bought it at this used car auction, 2 miles after driving it off the lot, it broke down. So I actually spent more money fixing the car than I did to actually buy it. And so then then I had it for 2 weeks, and my friends and I were promoting a party. And the way you promote a party in LA is you wait in the parking lot of the party that's coming out the night before, and you pass out your flyers in that parking lot. You go to where the target market is, right? And so I pull into a parking lot around midnight in South Central, and the moment I pull into the parking lot, 2 men jump out of the car in front of me with guns drawn, and all of a sudden I'm staring down the barrel of a gun. So without words being exchanged, the keys were exchanged, and the car was gone, just like that. And so that was my moment of awakening. Fortunately, that summer I was an RA because I had no more money. I put it all into the car, and I had to do some deep introspection. And so I wasn't going out on Fridays or Saturdays anymore. But I had housing and food taken care of. I had my needs met, right? And so I started asking myself some really important questions, like, why did I buy a Mercedes Benz? And when I really looked at it, it was programming. The only reason I bought a Mercedes Benz is because both my parents had Mercedes Benzes. It was the only car I had ridden in my entire life as a son of two doctors, right? And so I was trying to get the things that they got faster than they got them to show my parents that I was on a path to success. But I had no business as an 18-year-old with a real income to buy a European car at that moment in my life. I should have got a Honda Civic and I would have been all right. The next question I'd ask myself was, whose definition of success was I living? And it was clear just based on the programming of me, Benz, that I was actually living my parents' definition of success. I was doing what they wanted, right? And then the third question came, which was, what is my definition of success? And once I got clear on my definition of success and why I was here, what my purpose was, then that changed the trajectory of how I showed up at UCLA. It changed how I showed up in terms of my career search. It showed up in terms of how I managed my own self-education and getting to knowledge of self. And it showed up in just countless different ways once I got clear on my purpose and saw that this was not just about going to college, getting good grades, getting a good job, and just riding this thing out. I got off that path. And in fact, I graduated from UCLA early because I knew that liberal arts education was not going to get me to liberation. And so I decided to create my own curriculum, which is liberation arts. Liberal arts education will cost you, but liberation arts will free you. And so, start doing your deep study, your deep reading. And during that time, there was also a parallel path of spiritual growth, reading the Bible from cover to cover, as well as other spiritual texts. And those things in conjunction, understanding who I was as a spiritual being, understanding who I was as a person of African descent, and just understanding who I was as Jullien Gordon, all during that time while I was at UCLA, really laid the foundation for what I've been able to build and create today. But that moment of being held up at gunpoint, that was the moment that I didn't feel free. And I realized that there's a lot of people out there who don't feel free. But when you really ask them, is somebody holding a gun to your head? Like you're in a job that you hate, though you're being paid well, is somebody holding a gun to your head? If they are not, then you are free. But in your mind, you don't perceive that you are free. You perceive this as something that you have to do or that you must do. And it honestly is not true.
Brother, man. Oh, man. I want to let that part of the track breathe, man, a little bit, because I think that is so powerful. The reality of you staring down the barrel of the gun, but perhaps it made you kind of like stare down to like the track and the path of your life. Right?
Yeah.
Through something that could have taken your life, you saw your life for what it was.
Yeah.
And for what was.
Yeah. I'm grateful for that moment. Now, in hindsight, I'm grateful for that moment.
Bro, this is now. It brings me to this never piece because I think I'm curious about your relationship to what I'll call like solitude. Here's what I mean. Typically, there are two areas where you're talking about money and faith. It's a very scary path, right? Because of the fear associated with money, the quote unquote abuses, the people don't even necessarily touch that. That's one. But even perhaps a bigger one is to be one who is thinking freely. In so many senses, you get alienated and pariahed, right? Often because it's not necessarily the path that you're supposed to, the things that you're supposed to churn out in this economy, right? And so, how was that kind of a key part of your faith because you had some quiet time and your thinking wasn't aligned with everybody else? Did that kind of was that like the blessing of that time as well? Because you kind of found yourself in if I'm going to touch about the freedom in this way, and then people are thinking like this, it gave you some space. Like talk about your relationship to solitude and how important that is.
Yeah, so I'm actually my relationship to solitude is interesting because I am an only child of my mother and my father. My father did remarry and have two more sons, so I'm used to being alone, right? And And actually, solitude and loneliness, there are two different things. They may look the same from the outside looking in, but they're two different things. And solitude allows me to go in my head and observe myself. That's what it allows me to do. It allows me to observe myself. And so I start my days with meditation and with solitude before I jump in to the things that the world needs me to do or wants me to do. I start my day with solitude, and I try to bake that in to my life. But at the same time, I'm very communal, just like you. With the family dinners, I'm very communal. So I'm actually both. I need my log on my own, just thinking, able to walk around in my boxers and just think without any other energy in the space except me and my source, right? But then there's the other half of me who wants to be in community. Growing up in Oakland, my parents were doctors, and so they were working really hard. And so after school, I would go to my best friends' houses. And so I tell people all the time, I have 9 last names, right? Gordon, Carl, Ash, Primus, Kelly, Shields, Chambers, Hopkins, Brown, right? These are all the families that raised me from pretty much from 0 to 18, right? And so that whole notion of it takes a village to raise a child, I actually had that village, right? But all my friends, they typically had like nuclear families, and sometimes I was attracted to that. But then I knew I could go back to my house and be on my own. You got a little sister nagging you, but okay, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? So I could always cross over if I needed to, And so both are really valuable to me. And I think it's really important. And I think people lose that as a father. And especially for those who are married, you can actually lose solitude. And what I'm learning being in relationship is that there has to be ways for you to bake solitude into, if you're sharing space with someone, there has to be a way for you to bake solitude into it. It may be romantic to perceive that we do everything together. But I've found that both people having solitude in some way baked into their week or the relationship is actually one of the healthiest things you can do.
Brother, man, shout out to Jada. Shout out to fam.
Yeah.
So all love that. Bro, I love this, man. I love this. And I think you talk about this other-mindedness. It's in an environment that you came up around. You were kind of the beneficiary of a village and just this communal mindset, and how critical that is. Because I think you're touching on a pulse of these times. I think there's an eternal element of everything that you're sharing. Always, right? And you talk about kind of your heavenly role and your earthly role. And about financial spirituality being in the heavenly part, but this finance wasn't the only piece of what I call other-minded labor that you've had in your career. I mean, and I say this to say, it seems like you always had a disposition to want to teach, to want to share. Whether your value, talk about kind of like, like success is making other people successful, right? Like, how early was it? Was that just because that was the ethos and ecosystem you came from? And then even in college, you're talking about, okay, the 66 things, and here's the things you need to remember. Just how did that flow out of your experience? And then obviously I'm going to talk about a little bit more on the faith side about how that tied in, but how did that flow out of your experience where you always were, okay, I've been through this, I need to share it. Okay, I need to write this down. How did that start?
That is a great question, and I appreciate you for understanding my journey and all the nuances and elements and twists and turns of it. Harriet Tubman is my ancestor spirit that I look to for guidance, and she said something very powerful, that when she crossed the Mason-Dixon line, initially she was like happy and excited, but then the next moment she realized that the people that she loved weren't there with her. And that's actually what inspired her to go back down south 19 times over the course of a decade and free over 300 people. When she initially went back, she went to go get her brothers and her parents, and her brothers actually turned back around. They were more comfortable or they perceived that they would be more safer in slavery than trying to run and escape for freedom. And so I realized, like you mentioned it earlier, and especially the journey of solitude, I had a limiting belief. And this is based on programming and these cliches that people say all the time. It's lonely at the top. If I accept that program that it's lonely at the top, and I like being around people, then subconsciously I will not want to get to the top. I will sabotage myself from getting to the top because I deep down inside don't want to be lonely. And I changed that belief that one, every success story involves other people. So that can't be true. If we can look at any success story, name any successful person, we can go find that counterpart or a group of people in their team who supported them in getting there. Whether it's Jay-Z and Beyonce, Jay-Z and Damon Dash, whether it's Hewlett and Packard, whether it's Steve Jobs and Wozniak, whether it's Bill Gates and Ballmer. Every success story involves other people. I don't care what you do. So this notion of it's lonely at the top is actually not true. And so what I've found on the journey of perceived solitude initially, because you're typically breaking away from groupthink in your pack, there are other people out there that you will attract who think similarly to you. You don't want to be surrounded by people who think exactly like you. I don't believe in great minds think alike. Great minds actually don't think alike. They actually challenge each other's thinking though, right? They don't think alike. I don't want to be surrounded by people who just think exactly like me. I want to be expanded and grow. I want somebody to teach me something. I don't always want to be the teacher. But what I found on this journey that most people perceive as a lonely journey and path is that there's other people who looking and coming out the closet like, oh, you too? Oh man, I didn't know. We've been acquaintances for 10 years. I didn't know you thought that way. I kept it on the low because I thought I was the only one. No, if people were just their authentic selves, you would find more of your brothers and sisters on your path. And so I've decided just to be more open about my values and my beliefs and things of that nature. And that has attracted to me a beautiful community. But I think a lot of people are afraid to share who they are and what they truly believe because of perceived rejection and things of that nature. If somebody rejects you, whenever I share a belief, especially when we get into spirituality, I'm never seeking to convert anyone. I'm never seeking to get someone to believe what I believe. All I'm doing is sharing what has worked for me, right? And if somebody out there resonates with it, then they might reach out and we might form a relationship. If someone doesn't, then that message simply wasn't for you. And so that's what allows me to share on the public stage via YouTube and Instagram and things of that nature without fear, because my deepest intention is not to convert someone or argue with someone or prove anybody wrong. I'm just sharing what has worked for me. And because I know it has worked for me, I know it is true. So that approach has made it easier for me to be authentic in these public spaces.
Bam. This is I think that's gonna help somebody, man. I put some sauce on that one. Like that's gonna help so many people, man. You talked about just knowing what is true. I'm curious about just your foundation, because I think if anybody has read you and read just any of the books, any of the content, and you're well published in your efforts to educate people, there is number one, there is a what's true, right? In terms of like you speak in your own native tongue. What I call that is just like there's an honesty. There's this hip hop influence, or people who appreciate like you speak very confidently with words, and the way you play with words is melodic in a way that you always could tell that you want this to sit with people. So I appreciate that, number one. But number two, the truth. For someone that's so well read, what was the foundation of you learning what the truth is and was? Because when I say I'm bringing up these lyrics and things that you can become and these connections, it's like, man, this person, like, he had like he must have went off some island, like, because he's clearly like the scriptures. It's kind of like, like we talk about this. You want to get to a point like Jesus, like if you cut him, he bleeds scripture, like Isaiah come out, right? Like all this stuff. So what was the foundation of the truth being built in you? Was it just that moment afterwards when you started to explore God and the text and all these different texts after that experience? Or was there a foundation before that with your parents in Oakland where, okay, they dropped the seeds there and then there were levels layered on top of that?
Man, I don't know if it came from my parents, my truth seeking, honestly. So my religious journey, I went to church as a child because my parents went to church and that's where my friends were. So I was going to church as a child because that's where my friends were, and we would go to children's church and we would just go play and we hang out. So that's what church meant for me. I did get baptized when I was young and things of that nature. But then I got to UCLA and I was in Westwood, and there was there Westwood is far off from any black churches, right?
Yep.
So, and I didn't have a car, as I told you, in my first year or whatnot. So I went through this space of, okay, this is interesting. And there's no longer this spiritual or religious space in my life. And then there was a very beautiful woman who was going to church, and she had, so you know what that meant. That meant I was going to church. And so I got familiar with a particular church in LA, and we ended up separating. But I finally got a car after my situation, and my spiritual hunger started coming up. And so I actually started going to that same church again at a different time than she would go and things of that nature, just to give her space. Then my spiritual hunger kept growing. And so I was now going to a church service like at 8 a.m. And then I was going to another one at a different church at 11 a.m. And then there was this Bible study that a lot of people from UCLA were going to on Monday. So now I was going to 2 church services on Sunday and then a Bible study on Monday. And then the hunger in me kept growing. I kept desiring more. And so now I'm going to 3 different church services on Sunday and a Bible study on Monday. And it got to a point where, I was very deep in that particular text, and I would ask the elders questions because there are a lot of things in that particular book that contradict themselves and things of that nature. And when I would ask questions, the scripture around lean not on thy own understanding, et cetera, would come out. And that just didn't sit with me as a seeker. And so I don't believe that my creator and my source hides information. I believe it says, seek and ye shall find, ask and knock and the door will be open, ask and ye shall receive. And I wasn't getting the answers from really important questions. So at that point, I decided to read the text on my own from cover to cover, because I realized that many people in the space actually hadn't read the text. They had cherry picked and they had their 10 go-tos and that was it. And so I read the text from cover to cover over a 6-month period, and that gave me a deeper understanding. And at the same time, I'm going to 3 services, Bible study, etc., and even bringing people to church. And then, honestly, brother, one Sunday came, I woke up, and I realized that the temple was right here in me, and I stopped going to the institution of the church, and I just started going within. And as you know, Scripture says that God does not dwell in temples made by the hands of men. And so I started going towards knowledge of self, and I started asking myself, where did these beliefs actually come from? And that led me back to Ma'at and the Egyptian roots and the 42 laws of declaration, where you see there's parallels between that and the 10 commandments, especially when you think about Moses being in Egypt and things of that nature. And so I just wanted to go back to the source. And so that opened me up to many different ways of connecting to and relating to my creator. And so that's how I got to where I'm at. I think this has been one of my, in terms of seeking truth, I think that this has been one of my most arduous journeys to do so, because I believe that understanding that connection between us and our creator is probably the most important thing you can truly understand. And so that journey never ends. I'm probably, even with all that I shared, I'm probably 1% along on that journey.
Yes.
It's a journey that never ends. And so I just pray. My favorite prayer is just be me, God. I'm just trying to seek to be in alignment, even if I don't understand anything. Like, I don't understand all the ways that a car functions, but I can still use it, right? And so I know that I may never grasp, and actually our human minds can never grasp all that God is. We can attempt and we can try, but we can never grasp it. I just want to know enough to be able to stay in alignment, to be able to hear God and to connect and move in alignment with God to the best of my ability. I used to be in the hustling modality, and that used to be the way that I achieved. And I realized that that was for the birds. And now my focus is just being in alignment, because I know that when I'm in alignment, just like a boat that has a sail, if it is in alignment, it gets carried without any effort from the actual individual. But if you are seeking to rely on manpower instead of manifestation, you're going to be rowing and rowing and rowing. And typically you're rowing against something. You're rowing against nature. So I just try to stay in alignment. And when God is at my back, and I'm actually experiencing the least amount of resistance, I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Brother, man, this theme of alignment, I think, is consistent, that I observe, right, and that you speak to, and how important it is. But I think there's a macro effect. You spoke to this notion, or just this reality, that there are so many people where their life is dictated by money, right? So there's a spiritual reality of that this world isn't designed the way it ought to be, but our goal, all of our collective work, is to make it more like the heaven on this earth, right? Through our own lived experience, and through obviously collectively what we're seeing physically, and be a part of reshaping. But to your point,
Yes.
it is like the true God it is money. It's that, and then if people are making decisions based on money, clearly I'm saying this as an observation, then there's so many people out of alignment. What does that do for your spiritual health? What does that do for your mental health? What does that do for actually the health of the society? Because people who are designed to do certain things are not doing certain things. And so for you, is that the part of God, is that the part of just your journey, that we're all humbly, all in our journey, that you're like, what draws me to him is the fact that there is a north and a south about myself, and then about the world. Is that the aspect of God's character that kind of motivates your work?
So when when I left MLT and was actually started to do my work, I left at the bottom of the last recession, January 9th, 2009. You can go look it up. It was like one of the lowest points of the S&P 500 over the past 20 years. But I was being pulled by my purpose, and I was seeking to be in alignment, knowing that when I seek ye first the kingdom, all these things shall be added unto me. And so I left MLT with only $18,000 in my bank account, and my cost of living was about $3,000 with rent and student loans and things of that nature. So I had a 6-month runway to figure it out and see if this thing could fly. And if it didn't fly, then I would just go back to the drawing board and re-up. You know what I'm saying? So as I was teaching people how to get clarity on their purpose, that was my initial work. That's how I came out the gates. I was great at that. They were understanding what they were meant to do, but the biggest blockage for them was not understanding the economics of it, how to actually do it sustainably. And this is the number one thing that stops people from walking in their purpose. Like for me, freedom is not me kicking up my feet on a beach somewhere. And I know some people's vision of freedom is that they're just doing nothing and kicking their feet up on the beach. Everybody's definition of freedom is perfectly fine for them. For me, that's not it. Freedom, and the greatest feeling in the world, is being able to walk in alignment and do what you were created to do. I have not experienced any better feeling than that. And so I want as many people as possible to feel that on a daily basis, not just sometimes when you volunteer, not just sometimes when you mentor, not just sometimes on a Sunday. If we're only walking in God, literally, like on 2 days out of the week and not the other 5, then we're off balance. We are literally experiencing hell on earth. And so for me, it was really important for people to crack the code. And this is why I went to business school. I didn't know why I was going to business school at the time that I went. And I don't know why I got admitted to Stanford at the time that I got admitted. I'm a smart young man and this and that. And I was one of the youngest in my classes. But I realized that the reason I went to Stanford is because in business school in general, despite my disposition as this spirit-led individual, was because I realized that people in the world, many people know their blessing model and their gift and what they can give to the world, but they didn't have a business model to pair with it.
Bam. This is man, I always tell people when I'm here, I'm always sitting in the first pew and often when I'm sitting here, but this is the reality. This is true, right? And sometimes people, there's the flip side of kind of like, there's lack of provision, that there must be lack of purpose. as though somehow God's going to miraculously, and then there's no works that bridges the faith
Right.
to move you forward. And so
Right.
this is tactical, and it's the smartest of people who are well capable.
100%. 100%. So for me, you know, faith without works is dead. So faith with works is life. And so your blessing model is how you give your God-given gift to the world. That's your blessing, right? Your business model is how you receive back so that you can keep giving. So it's not receiving just for you to hoard and store. It's actually receiving so that you can be a bigger and better giver. And that's what God's children do. We have to become better receivers. We are great at giving, and many of us overgive so much that we're burned out, resentful, angry, and broke, honestly, and broke, right? Because we have been born, and it is better to give than receive. I claim that, but we have to become better receivers, and receiving is a skill set and a muscle that you have to develop so that you can be a bigger and better giver. So it's really important to pair that blessing model, which is your purpose, with the business model that actually brings the profit in so that you can continue to walk in your God-given purpose on a daily basis, not just on the weekends, not just when you're mentoring or volunteering. That's not how it's meant to be. It's not supposed to be this part-time thing. Like for those who tithe, the first tithe is to the church of your temple. This is the first tithe. It's actually reinvesting into yourself, because God does not want 10% of earnings that you got from doing something that is not alignment with your purpose.
Hey. This is
why I'm not walking my purpose, but you know, I make $100,000 a year, so and I'm giving 10% to the church. Why aren't you walking in your purpose? How about we tithe to your personal growth and development until you can walk in your purpose sustainably, and then we tithe from that overflow.
Bro, this is the barrier I see that you speak to, even around this, is this notion that with the blessing model, like it's almost like this thinking, because you talk about this, right? Even the scarcity mindset, right? So even if you give somebody money, even if they have all the material possessions in the world, if they have a scarcity, poverty, lack mindset, so to speak, they're gonna be poor. They're gonna be poor anyway. So there's this also
has
this
nothing
piece
to
of
do
mindset.
with how much is in your account.
Bam.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with how much is in your account.
Bam. You know what I'm saying? So
we have classmates from business school.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So I'm sorry.
No. I want to volley this. No, we don't know.
Yeah.
You know us. We chat, bro. But this is the power. But this is the struggle, because some people then say somehow that these two things compete. So the blessing model, I can't really have a business model, because that undermines the blessing model, and then people are not going to think it's a blessing model because there's a business model, and there's a mindset shift, right? That has to take place. Man, keep going, man. I wanted to make sure I called that.
Yeah, that's perfect. So you know, it says, "I'm come that you may have life and have it more." What?
John 10:10, more abundantly, bro.
Abundantly. But we have painted a picture of, especially Christians, have painted a picture of Jesus as this sacrificial leader. And therefore, they think that in order to be in alignment or Christ-like, they have to be sacrificial in that way. And so that's part of what actually stimulates the poverty consciousness, because I'm going to seek to just sacrifice. But look, if you are the giver and you're not receiving, at some point, guess what happens? You can no longer give. It actually robs you of giving. And so what I was saying before is that, you know, the wealth consciousness and the scarcity mindset has nothing to do with what's in your bank account. It has nothing to do with what's in your bank account. It actually has to do with knowing who and what your true source is. Again, Jesus walked around probably not carrying too much cash, right? Not hauling these heavy old talents because he knew what his source was. And when you were connected to the source, you realize that your job is not your income source. Your business is not your income source. Real estate is not my income source. My source is God. And then I have these various streams through which God pours into me through. So never confuse your income stream as your source. A lot of people do that. Oh, my job is my source. And therefore they worship it and they do whatever their job asks them to do. No, your job is not your source. It is one stream right? But this opportunity, if we look at how it played out, how you met that person at the grocery store and this and that, who orchestrated all of that? Your true source orchestrated all of that. You going to this school, you ended up in this, all of that was orchestrated. But oftentimes we confuse our source with our stream as our source. And so again, we have classmates who went to business school, some of them doing well, and I celebrate abundance in any form. Okay, I don't care how it's made. I celebrate abundance, and with the exception of making it in a way that is unrighteous and hurts other people. But I celebrate abundance. But there are people who have, let's say, 8 figures in their account, like sitting in their account that they're looking at, and they still have scarcity mindset. They're still driven by fear, doubt, and worry, despite having 2 commas in their bank account. So this mindset has nothing to do with your bank account balance. It all has to do with how aligned you feel, how much faith you have, and how aligned you feel with your creator. Why would your creator create you for a purpose and then not give you everything you need to succeed at that purpose? Make that make sense. I'm going to create you for a purpose. Then I'm going to put all these obstacles in your way to make sure that you can't live in alignment with your purpose. My creator doesn't operate like that. And so when I left my job, my traditional job, stepped out on faith at the bottom of the last recession, I was moving on faith, and I didn't know how it was going to manifest, but I'm experiencing, what is this? This is what, 12 years later, I'm experiencing more abundance than I could have even conceived of or imagined of as of January 9th, 2009. And it all goes back to me walking in my purpose and giving my unique gift to the world that was given to me by God. My gifts are not for me. My gifts are for those that I serve. Like somebody saying, oh, I look beautiful, or I can sing. The gift is not for you to brag about how beautiful you look or how well you can sing. The gift is you actually putting that out to the world and giving it to the world. You unwrapping your gift and seeing other people experience your gift is your reward, not the gift itself. And so that's how I think about it. And that's what allows me to move in faith. COVID and coronavirus, I experienced more abundance in the midst of COVID and the coronavirus because of my mindset. There are people who got free and there's people who froze. You either get free or you either freeze or you get free in the midst of this environment. I knew that the world was going to slip into poverty consciousness. And so that's why I wrote the book at the time that I did, because I had overcome that and survived the last recession. Not even survived, I thrived in the last recession as I walked in my purpose with a 6 months runway to my name and nothing but a dream, a vision, and purpose.
Brother, man, life begets life. This is so timely of talking about just faith and works together to give you life. That was the title of my message last week. And I think for people who steward people, meaning you're stewarding your gifts for the betterment of people, and then you've been about multiplying communities. I lose track of how many communities that multiply, but things only multiply when they have life, which means that you need to be connected. I want to ask you a practical reality, because there's also a physical, incarceration, for lack of a better word, that people are experiencing as well, because they're out of purpose, because they're out of alignment, or because they're approaching their blessing giving in such a unhelpful way. They are not healthy, they are burnt out, they are tired. And so for you, how has kind of like your rooting in your source, rooting in God, allowed you to be thoughtful about your practices and boundaries so you don't burn out? Because there's a lot of people tied to your work. How do you make sure you don't burn out with all the people that require the things that you're doing?
There is a hidden it's not even hidden really, but it's not material. It's not financial, but there is a tax on not walking in alignment with your purpose. And it is all those things that you just mentioned. It is physical tax. It is mental tax. It is emotional tax. It is psychological tax, because you know that you were here for more. You know that you were here for more. And yet every day, every weekday, you're waking up and doing something that is going against that. You're literally denying self and denying God. So you can't go to church on Sunday and talk about I have full faith in God, but then be denying God every single day when you're showing up to do work that is not in alignment, and you believe that there's no other way but to do that. So that's really important. But I seek to lead like a candle. So, we're supposed to put our candle on the hill and not hide it. But the beautiful thing about a candle is that if there are 1,000 other candles around me that are unlit, a candle can light all 1,000 candles without losing its light. One candle can light 1,000 other candles without losing its light. But we have actually engaged in more of a pour into methodology. So I'm pouring myself into you, and now you're full, but I'm empty. So our approach is actually broken. And oftentimes what we do is we pour into colanders. We pour into colanders. And because we think those are the least of God's children and those who we're supposed to serve, but we're pouring into colanders, and you can pour an entire ocean to a colander, and guess what? It'll still end up empty. And so we have to be more mindful of our energy. Money is just stored energy. But the first and most important energy that you have is the energy that's in your body temple. That is the greatest form of currency you have, because you could have all this stored energy and money, but if there's no more currency, energy flowing through your body temple, this means nothing. Ask Steve Jobs. How much would Steve Jobs pay of his billions? How much would he pay for another 10 years? So we have to really put things in perspective. And so the body temple is really important. And I have to do a better job of honoring and taking care of my body temple. I do eat relatively healthy, but in terms of my physical activity, I love playing soccer. I love group activities. I don't like going out to the gym and just doing something by myself. I don't listen to music that heavily, so I can't just like put on music, just get in. So I haven't found. I know I have found physical activities like soccer and basketball, but you got to get other people around in order for that to occur. And so I'm trying to find a way to exercise my body in a way that is fun and fulfilling and actually communal for me. So that's where I am in terms of my own self-care. I do need to do a better job of taking vacations. I told you I'm not one to kick my feet up on the beach. So vacations, like, okay, we flew all this way to sit on a beach. It just doesn't do it for me. So I'm still trying to find what fun is for me in this stage of my life, or what hobbies look like for me at this stage of my life. I'm actually in a state of exploration. I don't know if it's going to be painting. I don't know if it's going to be cooking. I don't know if it's going to be cycling. I don't know if it's going to be a foreign language or an instrument. But I am in search of a mental break from the actual work. And so that's a stage I'm in right now.
Brother, man, you in New Orleans. You better get the cook game together, man. Shout out.
Yeah. No, we need to take some of this salt and these unhealthy things out and still replicate the taste.
Be easy. Shout out to my brother Larry out there, man. All the people.
Larry's right here. He's literally a block away from me. So
yeah, I mean, so this is love, brother. I think you talked about exploration. I think this is where, because we're gonna have multiple parts. You and I are gonna have many conversations as we've had. Right. But I want to talk about, just now as you're thinking about exploration, for someone who has these such amazing goals of kind of like the 1 million. I love metrics. I love kind of the KPIs for us, like the OKRs of like, how many doors, how many, I love the door. But what do you have looking ahead that people could co-labor or be lit literally by ahead as you look forward and say, okay, I've done the multifamily. Are there other still big things that you could publicly show? Or you're like, where are you right now focused on? Just like, hey, you know what? I'm right now about the million on a mastermind, or this. Where are you in your journey of work?
Yeah, great question. The two metrics that are driving me right now is getting this book into 1 million hands. So that's first and foremost. And then the second metric is getting to 300 closings for my multifamily students. And then from there, it'll probably jump to 1,000. 300 is sacred because that's how many people Harriet Tubman freed. So those are the two numbers that I wake up and focus on. She freed 300 on the Underground Railroad. I call multifamily real estate the above ground railroad. And so I'm just walking in the same blueprint. I mean, even when you think about her journey, right, in the middle of the night, where did she take people? She hid them in safe houses. So real estate has been part of our journey to freedom since day one. But the safest house that you can buy right now in this economy is a multifamily home, because that home is an asset and it pays you, as opposed to you acquiring something that is essentially a liability or a very poor savings account through single family buyership. It's not home ownership. Don't be fooled by HGTV. It is not home ownership. It is home buyership. You do not own the home until you've actually paid off the full mortgage. So just be careful with the language of the American dream, because that's where some of the traps come from. And that's why I'm so particular with my language. And that's why I make up words in the book and things of that nature, because I believe in the vibration of these words that we say. Your word shall never return void. We don't want to be loose with our language. We want to be very specific and particular. So I don't call myself, I control 38 multifamily units. I don't own, actually, there are some that I own outright in cash, right? But I control most of these properties. Please don't call your salary income. Your salary is not income. You already know in business school. What do we teach you? It's not even business school. Lemonade stand. Income is revenues minus expenses. So your salary is not your income. Your salary is your revenues. And then you have all your living expenses. And what's left over at the end of the month, that's your true income. So you think your income increased because you got a raise in salary, but you also increase your cost of living. So in fact, even though you got a salary increase, your income did not increase because you bought a nicer car, because you went on a couple more vacations, because you started eating a little bit higher end. So your income didn't increase, though your salary increased. So now you're just slaving on the corporate plantation, but working harder. And it looks like you're making more money, but you're actually not, because if we look at the amount at the end of the month, it's the same. You still only have cash flow of $500, even though you have a six-figure job.
Fam, I'm excited, man, for kind of not only for prayer warriors, but those who will be on the other side of as an answered prayer to the opportunities that you're presenting with these things, man. I'm even raising my hand to be like, man, we in Jersey, my boy hit me with a multi-family joint. Like, hey, man, you need to look into this. So you and I obviously will chat a little bit about that, because I want to be able to come back and talk about, that. But there's a story that we all know, man. And there's a story, multiple stories, but stories of Jesus, who is the truth, speaking the truth. And when he's speaking the truth, the person who is the best orator of all time, the best sermon giver, the best message giver, the best communicator of all time, there are people who looked him at the black of his eye and turned away. They looked him in his eyes and they were like, yeah, nah, I'm good on that. I think when it comes to money, often the reason why I think money is, again, as an energy source, but also money as such, it's a proxy of often our deepest, our will, our deepest desires, are things that like are running our life, like I said. And so I think in many ways, I'm thankful for those people who have stood, right? And who have taken the truth and have done something with it.
Yeah.
But I'm also thankful that even from whether it's the front end or not, you continue to share the truth that makes people reimagine their relationship with money, realizing their relationship with themselves, realizing their relationship with their neighbor and their future generations, and they're doing something that's going to change things, and that's the truth. Those are facts. And so, brother, man, for that and much more, bro, I thank you.
Indeed, no doubt, man. I agree with you. Truth will set you free. And one, the truth hurts first and foremost, but then it will set you free. Actually, set you free. It is acting on the truth that will set you free. And you don't really have faith, and you don't really truly believe it's the truth if you haven't acted on it. If you know something is the truth, then your actions should go with it. If you're just saying it's the truth, then you're not acting in alignment with it, then you actually don't believe that it's the truth. So it's actually acting on the truth that sets us free. And so it's really important for us to take these spiritual concepts that we learn through church, through spiritual texts, etc., and actually act on them if we truly believe them. That is the demonstration of faith. And manifestation is literally having faith in something unseen until it is seen. That is it. It is having faith in something unseen until it is seen. And that's, we know, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, if you can repel all thoughts of fear, doubt, and worry, then whatever it is that you believe has to come forth at some point in time. Manifestation actually doesn't have a timeline, and this is where a lot of people get stuck. They want this to happen by a certain age. They want this to happen in 6 months because it happened for Lawrence in 6 months, right? And manifestation doesn't have a timeline. It can happen in the twinkling of an eye for one person who has a lot of faith and belief, and it might take 20 years like Tesla, right? So the power that we have is to hold the idea and the thought in our head until it comes forth. Bamboo goes underground for 5 years before it shoots up by yards. And so just because you can't see it in your material experience yet, you have to hold it here. You have to behold it here. And if you can hold it here without letting the weeds of fear, doubt, and worry slip in and uproot it, then whatever it is that you believe and that you conceive with your thought must manifest in the material.
And so it is. Amen.
And so it is.
Say, brother, this is you know it's a hat tip to that. I'm grateful for you, bro. How can people find you? They probably already know you, but how can people find you online, offline? How do people connect with you?
Yeah, the best way, where you can find my Instagram, where you can find the Rich and Righteous book, or my webinar on multifamily real estate, go to getfreenow.com. Getfreenow.com. Everything is there. So feel free to connect, DM me, let me know if you like the episode. I'm happy to serve, and I likely have ways that can help you if you're struggling with money and actually accepting that abundance is your birthright. The Rich and Righteous book will be perfect for you. If you have desired to step into real estate but don't know where to start, then you can check out the multifamily movement. And if you just want some general inspiration and things of that nature, I'm always putting out good stuff on Instagram.
Bruh, y'all, I plus eternity on all the things that he has said. Follow up, connect with him. If anything else, you'll be inspired, but information doesn't change people, inspiration does. So I truly think that you will fully connect with him and you will be inspired to change, to grow, to be who God has called you to be. Brother, thank you so much. I'm thankful for you. I respect you,
Thank
man.
you.
I'm grateful to be co-laboring in this life thing with you, man.
I appreciate you too, brother. Thank you so much.